So today we are starting our next series, which is a series on Advent. How many of you know what Advent means? Anyone? Patrick, he's sitting here on the front row, which he's already very uncomfortable by. But thank you for doing that. So what does Advent mean? Coming. Yes, he's just pointing down the road and saying, okay, Audrey, Advent is all about coming and preparation for the coming of Jesus. And that's one of the things that we do this particular season is we look forward to Jesus' coming. So each week is designated by a different word. Hope was this week, and thank you, Hope, for lighting the candle of hope. It was just very significant. Right? Next week we need somebody named Love to light the candle of love. So if y'all have a friend named Love, invite them to church because we need that. But tonight, as we take a look at hope, I want to ask you a question. How many of you truly believe that the best is yet to come? Many of you. Many of you. Even some old people. I saw some old people raise their hand. Well, I was talking about me. Oh. Because sometimes you live your life a little bit, like when I was young, I remember, yeah, my future's ahead of me, it's so great, it's so bright. There was a song that somebody wrote, I'd have to wear shades, like that's my generation, right? And so the best is yet to come is one of those things that we look at, and especially as believers, it should really make a difference to us. One of the things that I think this statement or this question reveals is hope. Yes. Are you hopeful for the future or not? And if you answer this question with yes, the best is certainly yet to come, then you have hope. Now, hope is one of those things that, we put great confidence in something that we can't see, something that's coming, and that's what hope is all about. What is hope not about? Have you thought about that? What are some of the things that we look at that hope really isn't?
Fear.
Fear is not hope. That's good. What else?
Despair.
Despair.
Past.
The past.
Disappointment.
That's a good answer. Go ahead.
Disappointment.
Disappointment. Yep. All of those things are not hope. So anytime we allow those things to kind of come into our thought life or our emotional life, we aren't hoping. One of the things that I wrote down that hope isn't, it's not escapism. Because many people that do not believe in God think that people that do believe in God are just escaping their current reality or having this false hope, this disillusionment. But we know that hope is not escapism. Like we're living in this time that's not yet, but will come. And the tension of all of that means that there are still bad things that happen, right? But hope isn't escapism. It isn't blind optimism. And hope isn't wishful thinking. Yes, that's right. So what is hope? Let's take a look, because true biblical hope, hopefully, becomes something that we can really, truly grasp onto, especially during this season, as we look towards Jesus' coming, because he came to bring us hope. So if you have your Bibles, go ahead and open them to Hebrews chapter 6. Hi.
There he is.
There. Is that me or is that you? Hey. There we go. I didn't think, never mind. We're good now.
Yeah.
That sounds a lot better. I won't have to yell so much.
Yeah.
Everybody on the front row is like, man, he yells a lot. Anyway, so Hebrews chapter 6. If you have your paper Bibles, Hebrews is towards the end of the book, so you're going to have to go all the way to the right. Sometimes it's easier to start at the end and go backwards to find Hebrews than it is to start at the left and go to the right to find Hebrews. So Hebrews chapter 6. Hebrews is one of those books that we don't really know who wrote it, but it has some great stuff in it, and especially this passage. So if you're ready, Hebrews chapter 6, verses 17 through 20 is where we're going to be tonight. Mark it up, underline it, whatever you need to do with your Bible, okay? Here we go. The writer of Hebrews says in chapter 6, verse 17, because God wanted to make the unchanging nature of his purpose very clear to the heirs of what was promised. Okay, pause. Who are the heirs? We are. We are the heirs. Remember last week we just finished up our series through the book of Ruth, and Jesus is our kinsman redeemer. He became human so that he could buy us out of slavery, to make us his sons and daughters and brothers and sisters all in one family so that we can inherit what God has given him. Do you know that Jesus inherited quite a bit, and he can't wait to share it with his heirs? So when you read this, even though this is Hebrews, this is the New Testament, we just finished the Old Testament, like remember, God loves you, and his plan of redemption spans thousands and thousands of years to reach you right here in 2017, almost 18. That's right. So we are the heirs of what he has promised, of what God has promised, and he confirmed it with an oath. I have to be honest with you. These two verses sometimes are a little confusing. I get confused when I read this, and so I have to slow down a little bit. So what's an oath?
Promise.
It's a legally binding promise. It's not just a, hey, let's make a handshake on this deal and everything's going to be okay. No, pinky promise, right? The guys in the back are pinky promise. So it's more than just a pinky promise. It is an actual legally binding oath. So what the writer's saying is God didn't want his heirs to forget his promises to them. So he sealed it with an oath. And what's more than that, verse 18 said he did this so that by two unchanging things in which it's impossible for God to lie. So what's the other thing? It's an oath. He confirmed it with an oath, and it's impossible for him to lie. Those are the two things. God cannot lie. Thank you. God cannot lie. And just to make sure that we understand that not only is his word solid and founded, he also says, and I will seal it or confirm it with this oath. And what is it? It's salvation. See, guys, what he's saying, and some of the backstory to this kind of thing is Jesus came to offer us salvation. And so he says, I want to make sure that my heirs know that this promise is beyond guaranteed. It's sealed with an oath, and it's impossible for me to lie. And I'm telling you, I am here to offer you salvation. And we who have fled to take hold of the hope set before us may be greatly encouraged. That alone should be encouraging, but there's more. This is one of my favorite sections. One of my favorite sections. Okay, we ready? Let's keep going. We have this hope as an anchor for the soul. Firm and secure, it enters the inner sanctuary behind the curtain, where our forerunner, Jesus, has entered on our behalf. He has become the high priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. Now here's what you need to know, because that guy's name was crazy. But Melchizedek is kind of this shadowy figure throughout the Old Testament. He was the only one that was both a king and a priest. And that becomes important later on, because we see Jesus as both a king and a priest. And there weren't any others that were kings and priests that I can remember tonight. Maybe there is, but I don't remember. So king and priest, that was the one that was kind of set as a standard. So when the author is referring back to Melchizedek, the Jewish people would have known immediately, this is no normal ordinary priest, and this is no normal ordinary king. No, he's holy and he's a ruler. Both and. But we have this as an anchor. What's an anchor? Man, anchors are super cool. Like, again, every time I do a message, I do a bunch of research just to make sure that I haven't learned everything I can possibly learn, and things always stick out to me. Anchors are pretty impressive pieces of boating equipment. Like, if you want to stay in place in a boat, you need an anchor. It's just a necessity. Anchors are big, they're heavy, and they're pointed, so they sink to the bottom of the ocean floor and hold. Okay? So what this is saying is Jesus is our anchor. He's unmovable. He's penetrating deep into an invisible and eternal world. And where is it? It's holding us secure, but it enters into the what?
The depths.
That too. But what does this say? It enters into the inner sanctuary. Where's that? What curtain? Okay. You guys know, like some of this, the Holy of Holies, yes, all of that. What did the Holy of Holies represent?
presence of God.
The presence of God with his people. The Holy of Holies. Man, I love this. Okay, the Holy of Holies is how God said, I want you to build me a part of, whether it was the tabernacle, which is the portable temple, before the temple was built, when Solomon came around, remember David wanted to build it. God said, no, David, you're a man of war, and I need a man of peace to bring this. Why? Because Jesus brings peace, right? God brings peace to mankind, not war to mankind. So David couldn't, but Solomon could. Solomon comes and he builds this incredible, elaborate kind of thing, and in the middle of that, there's a Holy of Holies. In the tabernacle, there's a Holy of Holies. And what separated the Holy of Holies from everything else was a curtain. It was like huge, okay, 20, 30 feet tall, and super thick. And the only person that could enter the Holy of Holies was the high priest once a year. And it was so dangerous to enter into God's holiest presence as a man. You had to go through all of these purifications, and I didn't mean man like women can. I'm saying as mankind. To enter back with all of these purification things, and then they would tie a rope on you. Why? Man, in case God was like, I'm not happy with you, and in the presence of God you die, they could pull you back out. Hey, so the reason that God is showing us all those years why this place is so important is because it symbolizes the holy God's presence with humanity. And who's there now? Who entered? The Holy of Holies. Jesus is right there with God. Jesus is right there with God. He is an anchor for our soul. He's firm and secure, and it's entered into the sanctuary behind the curtain, which no longer exists on earth, where our forerunner, Jesus, has entered on whose behalf? On our behalf. He's firmly set in heaven, present with God for our hope to be connected to. Jesus entered on our behalf. He's become the high priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. Okay, so this idea of forerunner, do y'all know what forerunners are? They're not just a really cool Toyota truck right now. Okay? They're the ones that go before, right? Well, some of the things that you might learn if you studied or even Googled anchors is there are times when anchors are actually loaded in smaller boats. And the smaller boat takes the anchor from the ship and kind of goes out far away from the boat. What's interesting to me about anchors is the further from the boat the anchor is, the more secure the boat is. Right? Okay, think about that for a second. Maybe it's just me, but my mind was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Because doesn't God feel far away sometimes? But sometimes he's saying, man, my anchor will hold. No matter how far, it will hold. And actually, when you feel like you're bouncing prayers off the ceiling sometimes, like you can know that even though you might feel far from God, the longer that anchor's stretched out, the more it holds you. He trusts you. When you feel far, he trusts you. And it doesn't mean that you haven't wandered off by any means, okay? It just means that those times when you feel like, man, I'm doing everything that I need to do to try to get to know you, and he feels a little bit distant or foreign, just know that anchor will hold, and the further it is away from the ship, the stronger it holds. Now, Jesus, our forerunner, so, okay, the little boat would take the anchor and it would sail out in front, it would drop anchor for the ship so that the ship could be held more secure. And this language is similar to that idea. Jesus goes before to drop the anchor. Jesus was the first one into heaven to overcome death. And he says, anybody that's connected with me, therefore, will come after the same way. Now, that's all I got for you. But there's a lot in there. So let's talk about this. What is hope? It says, I've given you things to hope in. God's word is unchangeable. He cannot lie. It is not a fabrication. It's not made up. And he sealed it with an oath. His son actually signed the oath in blood for you. He says, I have not abandoned you. I've just gone ahead of you. We put our hope, our strength in God because he is able and capable. So what does an anchor do? Man, it can't be shaken. It can't be moved. It's tight and you can't lose it. So what the Hebrew writer is saying to us here is that we have this hope set in this one that has gone ahead of us and connected us to the very presence of God through an unbreakable, unshakable chain of hope that keeps us connected to his anchor. That's what hope is. Sometimes we look at hope as this willy-nilly, wishy-washy kind of thing. I hope that that comes into place. I said thing, not person. I hope that that comes into place. But we don't often really believe, and so what the author here is telling us, folks, is just this, that our hope is secure not because we are faithful, or we are capable, or we believe strong enough or hard enough. That's not where our hope comes from. Our hope comes from the fact that our anchor is in the very presence of God and is unmovable and unshakable. That's where our hope comes from. Okay? So I was thinking maybe I needed to go out and get a chain for it's actually just a Halloween prop. Okay? Otherwise, because chains help us recognize what kind of strength there is. And when we're chained to the anchor of hope, we become unshakable and unmovable. Did you want to hold that for me?
Whoa, so strong.
Don't let go. There you go, see? Jesus came to earth, and we look at Advent. You can hold on to that, that's all right. Jesus came to earth and filled tons of prophecies. Jesus came to earth and he offers us forever hope. Jesus came to earth to give us love and joy and peace, and we're going to talk about each one of those. But Jesus came not just to offer you salvation, but to give you something so secure and so firm that no matter what happens in your life, you can rest assured those chains aren't going to break. I promise you, no storm that you go through is going to break the chain that God has wrapped around you to say to you, you can trust in me because I'm not going to let you go. That's hope. We have this hope. This hope in the unmovable anchor of Jesus who paid the price for my sins so that I can have the same kind of access to God that he has. And the Hebrew says that Jesus is sitting at the feet, at the right hand of God, saying, I am here and they are the ones that I love, and I am connected to them through an unbreakable chain because they are anchored in this hope that we have in Jesus. And this hope isn't willy-nilly or wishy-washy. This hope is secured because of what he did. You like that? The best is yet to come. We hope, but when we have this kind of hope in God, the best is yet to come. And here's the thing, guys. There's no guarantees that the best is good for you tomorrow. There's no guarantees that your health is going to hold out forever. There's no guarantees that your job is going to hold out forever. There's no guarantees that your bank account is going to hold out tomorrow, or your relationship with that special someone is going to hold out tomorrow. There's no guarantees of any of that. And that's why when we understand that our hope is chained to the anchor of Jesus in heaven, that it becomes unshakable and unmovable, and no matter what kind of storm happens in life, you can stand up under it because your hope is secured in him. Jesus went ahead of us. He did not abandon us here. He's not like, where'd Jesus go? Oh my gosh, my faith is in jeopardy because I can't see him or find him anywhere. No, he is there, and the reason that he's there is because he's securing for you a better future. He's guaranteeing that you will make it there when you are connected to him through faith. Jesus came to offer hope. Of the many things that he came to offer, this one's a big deal. Jesus came to offer hope. So I had thought about different ways to kind of do Advent. I was talking to April last week, and she's like, Advent's great, it's very traditional. You know, we love tradition. I'm like, April, I hate tradition. Everyone can preach the messages the same way every time, and it blows my mind because I try to be more creative and looking at the same hope, joy, peace, love. I'm like, great God, I'm glad, thanks. Merry Christmas. She's like, you're such a humbug sometimes. Valid. But as I was working through, like, what can I do? What can I help? It was striking to me that this whole idea of these presents that we exchange at some point here in a few weeks is like to and from. Like you write to Graham from Santa. And I like Santa. It's been good this year. So I'm expecting some good stuff from Santa. And one of the things that kind of struck me was like each one of these candles that we light, each one of these statements that we make, each one of these Advent words that we celebrate over the next few weeks is his gift to us. To Mandy from God. To Ted from God. Right? And if it wasn't for like the graphics and trying to make that look cool, that might have been the title of the series. And I was thinking, like, how can I help everybody see this? And so what I hope to do over the next few weeks is give you something to reflect on, not only this year, but for years to come, that you can put on your Christmas tree or in your pocket and carry around with you, or something to remind you of what Jesus is and what Jesus does. So Jesus came to you to give you hope from God, right? And so Trish did a great job helping me with these things. Okay, we'll put that together somehow. This was not easy to do, by the way. Oh, that one did too. That's funny. So each one of these things is 3 links in a chain. Now, I wouldn't suggest that you try to bear your body weight on this chain, but it's just a reminder of the chain that has wrapped around you to the anchor, which is Jesus. And so this week you get to go home with this little chain and put it up on your family tree. Would you like that? And the whole idea is so that you remember and are reminded of, can you guys pass it around? 1 per family to start with, and we'll see how that ends up afterwards. Okay, look at that. It's a magic trick. It just came in. Yeah, so I'm going to sing Jingle Bells on the end, too. No. When I think about this, being chained to the anchor who is in heaven, securing my place and guaranteeing that I will be there, it changes the way that I look at life. It changes the way that I see my day. It changes the way I think about what he's given me. It changes the way I worry about whether or not my health is good, or my bank accounts are right, or my job is secure, or my friends like me. Right? It changes everything. Because when you see the invisible picture of this chain wrapped around you to Jesus, there ain't nothing that can shake me out of his will.
That's right.
Or his way.
Amen.
There ain't nothing. He's got us, guys. He's got us. Now, I'm going to give you some time to process all of this and to pray about it and think about it, but I also want to spend a little bit of time kind of setting up what we do next. Some of you know but we're going to continue that process, okay? So in the back, we've got our prayer wall, and as the band comes back up here and leads us in a couple of songs that are reflective and hopefully give you a chance to really think about where you are with your hope in God, and maybe some ways that you need to work on recognizing how strong His chains are that bind you to Him. Maybe there's another issue in your life that you're dealing with that you'd like to write down in prayer and roll it up and put it in that prayer wall thing over there. Again, Wednesday night our prayer team will meet, so anything that's above the blue line we'll pray over for you, and we love that. We really enjoy interceding for you on those nights. You also might notice that there's a new element in the back. There's a Bible on top of that podium there. Trisha's parents donated that podium to us years ago. I think it was in an attempt to make us more traditional than we were trying to be. And that's okay, you know, they're traditional people and that's great, but I haven't ever really used it. And so I thought I'd put it out there, and that's my dad's Bible. And so one of the things that we want to start to do here is, as a family, as a church family, as the family of God together, and if you're struggling with an issue, find a verse and make a note. If God's giving you a passage in your own week, in your own time with Him, that is freeing to you, or that you'd like to celebrate as a church family or whatever, man, that's going to be our church family Bible. So I want you to make notes in that and mark it up and write stuff down and put things in there that matter to you and all of that. And we'll just keep that in the back, and every week you'll have an opportunity to do that. So I want you to start thinking about this as you live out your normal weekly lives. Like, how can I contribute to that somehow? You can write a note down and stick it in the pages of that Bible. That's okay. I want to see that thing worn out in a year or less. Okay? And I can't think of a better way to kind of just bring us all together as a family than to meditate and marinate on God's Word. So there it is. It's in the back for us that way. Over here we still have our giving box, man. We're connected to God with such strong chains of hope. Nothing can come against us. And because He has so generously offered His Son to us, we give back to Him because we know that all good things come from God. And so the giving box is over there. As we approach the end of the year, that may be more important to you than ever. But next to that, you'll notice there's another little box that's wrapped. And that's going to be our Christmas box. Some of you might not have been with us for long. Some of you might know the subculture that goes on around here. But typically, around this time every year, one or two of your families will approach me and say, hey, is there somebody in our church that needs help this year? And maybe there's somebody outside of the church that you'll bring to my attention that says, man, this family that I know is really struggling, we want to help. And so we've identified a family within our church this year that could really use some help out. And that's what that box is there for. Gift cards are great at grocery stores. They've got children, but not necessarily going to get into the specifics of that. So you can write your checks to House Church and write on the pay line Christmas gift, and we'll know that that's separate. This is, again, separate from what we normally do to give back to God. So above and beyond type of giving, okay? So that's over there. That'll be there for the next few weeks as we approach Christmas, where you can go ahead and participate in being extra generous this time of the year. Some of you have plenty, right? And some of you don't have enough. And so what the church does is those with plenty and those without, try to meet up in the middle and help one another, okay? So that's what that's going to be for. Again, we've moved the communion from the back to make room for the Bible up here in front. Feel free to participate in taking the Lord's Supper tonight as well. But these times of reflection and response aren't meant to do anything but allow you time to connect with God. Okay? So feel free to sing along and worship once you've spent that time. Look, it's a whole lot easier to do something that you're used to doing. Familiarity, right, is easy to repeat, but in these specific moments, we'd like you to just take a little bit more time to get a little uncomfortable with God. Which is kind of sad. But it's important that we do that.